Yesterday, Sayadaw explained that yogi should be mindful of the nama rupa in oneself, in every posture, walking, standing, sitting, lying, lifting, moving, and placing. At first, in the walking, one knows lifting, moving, placing. Later on, lifting, dragging, forwarding, releasing, dropping, pressing become obvious. And also, the mental objects become obvious. The nama rupa are obvious when standing up, when sitting down, when lying, and also in the minor postures, also when one is in the transition from one posture to another, such as bending, stretching, turning. The nama rupa are obvious even in the minute objects such as opening and closing of the eyes, blinking of the eyes. The nama rupa are obvious. When there is discomfort, staying in one posture for a long time, then one needs to change another posture in order to relieve the discomfort. So it is very important. So to say it in the worldly sense, it is said that there is walking, standing, sitting, bending, stretching, turning. But what is hidden are the nama rupa that are arising as cause and effect. And these nama rupa arise and pass away. They are impermanent, suffering, and non-self. And Sayadaw explains sarasa, sabhava, the characteristics which are compared to the flavor of the food. In each and individual nama rupa, they are the individual characteristics. And these nama rupa are not causeless. These nama rupa arise due to relevant cause. Unrelevant cause does not give effect to unrelevant effect. Relevant cause gives rise to relevant effect. And the nama rupa are arising continuously as cause and effect, just like a stream of current. The old object dissolving, new object arising, old object dissolving, new object arising. The object arises at one moment and passes away at another. Sarasa are the characteristics, the nature, which are compared to the flavor of the food. In the food, there is the flavor such as sweetness, sourness, spicy, pungent, salty, and bitter. Putting the food into the mouth and chewing, one will know the taste. Without chewing the food, without putting into the mouth, without chewing the food, one will not know the taste. So, chewing the food, when the food gets digested by chewing the food and combining with the saliva, one comes to know the flavor, the taste of the food. Just as the food has its own taste and flavor, in the same way, in every activity, there are the nama rupa involved. In the nama rupa, each of them has its own unique individual characteristics. When standing up, the nama rupa are arising. When sitting, the nama rupa are arising. When lying, the nama rupa are arising. When lying from standing position also, when one lies down also, there is the nama rupa. And when bending, stretching, turning also, the nama rupa are arising in pair. And this nama rupa has its own unique individual characteristic, just like the taste of the food. If the person is looking here and there, if the person is talking, paying attention to other things, then the person does not know the taste or the flavor when eating. So one has to pay attention, chewing the food, paying attention, and one will know the taste. In the same way, yogis should be mindful every time one bends, every time one stretches, every time when one walks, stands, sits, and so on. And one should be mindful, continuously noting with aim and effort, so that sati, mindfulness, will arise automatically. Noting the object with aim and effort, there will be sustained mindfulness. The mind falls calm, collected on the object. Aiming the mind onto the object, the mind becomes face to face or direct with the object, and there will be sustained mindfulness. The mind falls calm, collected, samadhi concentration develops. And when samadhi concentration becomes strengthened, one discerns the nama rupa. When the mind falls on rupa, one discerns the rupa. When the mind falls on nama, one discerns the nama. And one needs to note the object with aim and effort, so that the mind will be very close to the object. When the mind is very close to the object, one will discern clearly. The example is given here. When a person takes a look at something that is at a distance, the person will not see it clearly. So the person has to go closer to take a look, so that when the person is very close to the object, the person sees it clearly. From a distance, the person does not see, or even if the person sees, it will not be as clear, and one will think of it as something else. Taking a closer look, one will see the view very clearly. If there is a row of ants, and if the person look at it from a distance, then the person does not see it as a line of ants or the termites. But the person will think of it that it is a rope or a branch, but the person does not see it as a line of ants. But if the person takes a closer look, then the view becomes clearer, seeing some things moving, and even going closer and closer, the person sees that each and individual ants are moving one after another, and the person sees very clearly that it is only a line of ants moving. In the same way, in order to discern the object clearly, one needs to note the object, so that the noting mind should be very close to the object. And one will see that the old object dissolve, new object arise, the old objects dissolve, new object arise. There is sandhana, continuity. And if one looks at the line of ants, one will just see it as a rope or a string or a branch. So there is sandhana paññati, form or shape concept. But taking a closer look, one sees each individual ant moving one after another. So taking a closer look, the continuity concept and the form or shape concept fall away when one sees it very clearly by taking a very close look. So when the yogi notes the object with aim and effort, when the noting mind is very close with the object, the sandhana paññati, continuity concept, and the sandhana paññati, form or shape concept, will fall away and one will discern correctly and clearly. In every posture, such as sitting, standing, the nama rupa are arising. There are 4 noble truths. Among the 4 noble truths, the nama rupa are included in dukkha sajja, the truth of suffering. Not knowing nama rupa as suffering, one thinks it as pleasant, and one has attachment, craving, lobha arises. There is the cause of suffering, which is samudaya sajja, the origin of suffering. These 2 truths, dukkha sajja and samudaya sajja, the truth of suffering and the truth of origin of suffering, are difficult to be discerned, and thus they are profound. If one does not look, one will not see. If one does not look meticulously, one will not see. So one should look, observe thoroughly, meticulously, in order to discern correctly. In order to discern correctly, one needs to observe in order to discern. And one needs to observe with the strengthened mind, with the energized mind, in order to discern. And one needs to make effort in the noting. And one should keep the noting continuous, one after another, without any gaps in between, so that the noting will be strengthened, mindfulness will be strengthened. The mindfulness will stick onto the object so that mindfulness will be sustained, steadfast, firm on the object. When the mindfulness is firm and steady, the mind falls calm, collected on the object, and khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, develops. So when the yogi makes effort in the noting, with diligent effort, sati, mindfulness, and samadhi, concentration, will arise automatically. So one does not deliberately need to cultivate sati and samadhi, but so long as the yogi notes the object with aim and effort, aiming the mind onto the object, putting ardent effort every single second, sati, mindfulness will be sustained, samadhi, concentration, will be developed, and one will discern the nama rupa. When the mind falls on nama, one discerns nama, the intention to sit. When the mind falls on rupa, one discerns the heaviness, stiffness. In the sitting, what arises are the nama rupa that arise continuously. And when the noting mind falls calm, collected on the object, one will discern the nama rupa. In order to discern, there should be sustained mindfulness on the object. Mindfulness should be sustained. In order to keep the sustained mindfulness, one should always exert ardent effort in the noting, and one should be noting the object with aim and effort every single second. Noting the object with aim and effort, the mind sticks onto the object. Laziness as well as other defilements will have no chance to arise. Aiming the noting mind onto the object, the mind will be fresh. So there will not be sleepiness, but the mind will be fresh, just like the flower blossoms in the morning light. Just as the flower blossoms and opens in the morning light, in the same way, noting the object with aiming, directing, the mind will be fresh. And in order to overwhelm laziness, one needs to exert effort. The aiming and effort are necessary in the noting, and one should be noting, aiming the mind onto the object so that sleepiness will be away. Noting the object with effort, laziness will be away, and the path of wholesomeness will be open. The path of wholesomeness opens sati, mindfulness, samadhi, concentration, and knowledge, panya, knowledge will be involved. And one will be removing the hindrances, lobha, dosa, and moha. Having samadhi, concentration, samadhi abandons and removes and destroys the kama chanda nivrana, sensual desire, wanting to see good things, wanting to hear good sounds. Such kind of sensual desire are destroyed with samadhi, concentration. If there is one moment of khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, for that moment, the kama chanda, the sensual desire, is removed. And if khanika samadhi, momentary concentration, arise continuously, then kama chanda nivrana, sensual desire, will be removed continuously, so that the mind is fresh, away from tina mita, sloth and torpor. If there is sloth and torpor, then the person does not want to make effort. One feels exhausted, wanting to take easy, but noting the object with aim and effort, tina mita, sloth and torpor will have no chance to arise. When the noting mind rubs and strokes against the object, noting becomes effective, there will be certainty, and thus vicikesa, skeptical doubt, will be removed. And when the noting mind hits the target, the object of meditation, one feels joy, satisfaction, one gets goose flesh. There will be piti, joy. Having piti, joy, there will also be sukha, happiness and comfort. Having piti, joy, one removes anger, hatred, aversion, dissatisfaction. In this way, anger, aversion, hatred, dissatisfaction are removed when piti, joy, arises in the practice. When there is uddhacca and goggoca, there will be restlessness. The mind is becoming distant with the object. The mind scatters. The mind gets distracted. Having goggoca, there will be regret and remorse on the wrongdoings that have been done in the past. Having sukha, happiness, uddhacca and goggoca, restlessness and worry will be removed. Noting the object every single second, there will be vitakka, vichara, piti, sukha and ekaggata, initial application, sustained application, joy, happiness, one-pointedness arise in the noting. And in the sitting, one should be mindful of every inch of sitting, one layer by layer, inch by inch. One should sit mindfully. When the noting mind rubs and strokes against the object, there will be certainty, there will be joy, happiness. When there is joy and happiness, the mind becomes calm, collected, and knowledge follows. And one will discern the nama-rupa that are profound. Even though the nama-rupa, which are the dukkha satya, the truth of suffering, are difficult to be discerned and profound, but by removing the hindrances, these will become very profound. Patipakha vidhamanena, meaning by removing, destroying the nirvana hindrances, even though the truths are profound, but one will be discerning them. One will discern them very clearly, and these truths will become very obvious when the person destroys the hindrances. So what the yogi need to do is to practice systematically so that yogi removes the nirvana hindrances, so that the yogi discerns the true nature. So one should be noting the object with aim and effort every single second. One will not be thinking, imagining, or reflecting. One should note the object with aim and effort. Listening to the guidance and instruction, following the guidance and instruction, the person will be endowed with the virtue, sova jasata. Listening to the guidance, following the guidance. So this virtue is also needed. But if the person does not listen attentively, not following the guidance and instruction, the person is lacking the quality sova jasata, and thus his or her practice will not be a success. Practicing Satipatthana meditation, there is Sammapatipatti, practicing systematically. One needs to practice systematically in order to understand oneself. So one needs to understand oneself. One is made up of the nama rupa that are connecting as cause and effect. And one should discern the nama rupa, cause and effect. If the person does not know the dissolution or changing of the nama rupa, then one does not know correctly. If the person does not know correctly, there will be the wrong view, person, being, creator, permanent, good, and self. Discerning the nama rupa correctly, one understands that there is no person and being, no person or being. In discerning cause and effect, one understands that there is no creator creating. So it is very important to understand oneself. Even though the nama rupa are very profound and difficult to be discerned, but if there is samapatipatti, if one practices systematically, these nama rupa, even though they are profound, they will become very obvious through the systematic practice. The nirvana hindrances are concealing the truth, and these hindrances make the person know wrongly. So such kind of nirvana hindrances are hiding, concealing, layer by layer. In order to peel off layer by layer of nirvana hindrances, the abandonment of these hindrances are connected with systematic practice. So when one sits down from standing position, one should note sitting, layer by layer, inch by inch, noting respectfully, meticulously, so that the noting mind falls on the object. One should note the object, aiming the mind onto the object, so that the mind is face to face, direct with the object. One should make the effort in the noting, so that the noting mind reaches the object. And there should be systematic practice. By practicing systematically, sati, mindfulness, samadhi, concentration, and panya, knowledge, will follow. So there will be the systematic practice. By practicing systematically, one will be removing the hindrances. So the removal of the hindrances is connected with the systematic practice. So in order to remove the hindrances, one needs to practice systematically. Sa sadhamma savanadina, in order to be able to practice systematically, one needs to listen to the guidance and instruction. So the sadhamma are the correct way of practice, the method of practice. By practicing the sadhamma will uplift and save the person who practices, so that he or she will not be inferior or degraded. So one needs to learn the correct method of practice in order to be able to practice systematically. Every day there has been guidance and instruction. One should listen attentively, respectfully, so that one will be able to practice systematically. Without learning of the correct method, one will not be able to practice systematically. So the meditation teacher listens to the report of the yogi. Based on the yogi's report, the meditation teacher, combining with his practical knowledge as well as the theory, the teacher will give corrections. If there are things that should be abandoned, he or she will say so. If the yogi needs to fill up the gaps, the teacher will point out that he or she needs to fill up the gap. And sometimes the teacher may just instruct the yogi to keep on going to practice in the same way. So yogi has to follow the guidance and instruction of the meditation teacher in order to understand himself, herself through the systematic practice. So one should learn the correct method of practice in order to discern and one should note every arising object with aim and effort. In order to have successful practice, one should have faith and confidence in the Buddha who guided the way. One should have faith and confidence in the Dhamma, the teachings. Without faith and confidence, one will not be able to work. So it is very important to have faith and confidence in the Buddha, in the Dhamma. One should know the virtue of the Dhamma that one is practicing, and one should have strong will in order to gain these virtues. One should have a strong will to be fulfilled with these virtues, and one should be able to practice with courageous effort. One should have the courage in the practice so that one will attain sati, samadhi, and panya, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. So while the yogis have this opportunity to practice here, while there is still time, it is important to make use of the time so that the time here will be worthwhile and beneficial. So Sayadaw encourages the yogis to be mindful every time one walks, every time one stands, every time one sits, every time one lies down, every time one bends, stretches, opening and closing of the eyes, blinking, everything should be done mindfully. So if the yogi make corrections to his or her practice, to be meticulous in the practice, then even within a few days, yogi will notice the progress. But if the yogi has the same experience over and over again, day by day, then there is something lacking in his or her practice. So what Sayadaw sees is that yogis are not practicing continuously. There are gaps between the mindfulness. Some of the yogis are practicing in a flippant way, having gaps between the mindfulness. So if there are gaps between the mindfulness, then 60 days will pass by without progress. So Sayadaw guarantees that if the yogi practices with faith and confidence, strong will, with courage, without having regard to one's body and life, there will be progress. So Sayadaw strongly encourages the yogis to practice with faith and confidence, with strong will, with courage, without regard to one's body and life. And this will be all for today.